All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited about this one here tonight on Sportswire Radio because our guest is no stranger to Sportswire Radio. Had him on a couple different times here, but tonight's a little different because there's a new team, a new sheriff in town. As I mentioned, to kind of segue him returning or sending they to return back to Sportswire Radio. And our guest has got a lot to say, especially when it comes to our friends over at Wrestling Appreciation Society. And certainly we are getting ready for maybe some more deadlines, some different things to talk about. Who knows what else? Plus, some of the recent comments from our most recent guest in WAS, Mr. Donnie Franchise. So this one, I promise you, is going to be one you won't want to miss. Might even get into a thing or two about nonstop action wrestling because our guest is also the head official there. So he needs no further introduction, but we're going to give it to him anyway. So with that, wait for it. Further ado here on the Sports Wire number one level sports show. Now, president of the Wrestling Appreciation Society, that is Sammy Rice. Sammy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Life's been busy. Life's been stressful, but I'm doing well personally. How are you doing, Mr. Bryce?
I'm okay. I mean, if you would have asked me before we went on the air, I said, well, I felt like my knee, I had a bum knee. It felt like I overslept or I slept on one side of the bed, but I came on live and nothing happened. It's almost like I'm 100% again. That's the beauty of doing these things on Sportswire Radio, and people have already tuned in. We'll certainly let people say hello here shortly. But Sammy, it is a tremendous honor once again, especially because I mentioned it here in our introduction of you, into the fact that now you are the brand new president of the Wrestling Appreciation Society. And I'd like to ask you, especially A, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, and B, also fans of WAS, talk about what this means and kind of where we go from here in WAS.
So, me being president means a few things. Firstly, it means that kind of for the next 12 months or so, I am the kind of de facto face of WAS. I'm the person who's like a president or a prime minister of any state. They're the spokesperson. They are the face of that group. That's me. I personally don't see presidency as kind of the be all and end all. For me, WAS is about a community spirit and us all coming together to do the best job we can as a collective, and kind of I'm just the person who has to sign off at the top. Or well, really for us, that's our general manager, Chris Walker, but we'll come on to that later.
We've smartly spoke about him in a most recent show with our guest that was prior to you and Mr. Donnie Franchise, and we'll certainly get into that. But I mean, you say so, it doesn't mean so much as what it would mean to others. But I would be curious, though, and let's say for those that are listening and watching that are hearing you for the first time, and what are those responsibilities that you might have over the next 12 months that people would want to know about?
So a lot of what I've got to do, the title president sounds incredibly exciting, but
I mean, it does. I mean, people hear, listen, they hear prime minister, president, they hear whatever it is, right? You have some abilities. I mean, you certainly are a somebody in the world, right?
For me, as I see it, I've just got to do all the boring admin stuff and making sure that people are at the right place and making sure that we've got like places booked up where we can do these shows. Like, there are people that would let this position go to their heads. There are people that would take this power and abuse it. I'm not one of those people.
Well, is that sort of a, how can I put this here, a segue toward bop bop beep, bop bop boom, my last guest, Mr. Donnie Franchise, and how everybody thought they knew Donnie? Is that what you're trying to imply here, Mr. Rice?
Well, they're your words, not mine, Tom.
Okay. All right. Because I was curious because you mentioned someone else and I thought maybe that's what you were going with. But I mean, talk about though And we've got a chance now to watch Deadline. We've gotten a chance to watch some of these different matches, and obviously tremendous editing job, by the way. Tremendous job on being able to put a show like that. And I mean, just talk about overall in the future of WAS. And you have this event that draws the people you did in the setup and the environment. And I mean, how do you top something like that?
So we had our first year in WAS be a bigger success than anyone could have ever imagined. We went in expecting an audience of non-wrestling fans, and that's what we got. But we expected that audience to kind of be learning. Like, there are things that come with a wrestling audience. There are things you need to learn as an audience to
Sure.
help enjoy these shows the best you can. And we didn't know how quickly our audience would pick those up. But from the moment that me and our ring announcer for the show, Josh Wood, stepped out in front of everyone, they were electric. They absolutely loved and ate up every second of it. They cheered when people like Phantom of the Outlaw got what they wanted. They booed when certain people who I'm quite close to did certain things. Like there is,
Well, I think a lot of people thought they were close to that person. So I know you're going for the second time on that. So, I mean, I totally understand that.
yeah. Again, we'll come on to that person later because I'm going to need an extended period of time to
Okay.
dissect all of that. But kind of for the future of WAS, to keep it very brief, we're going bigger, we're going better. The first year was incredible, but we're not going to be slouching in this year. We've got ideas and we've got plans in place, and we've got some big things coming down the pipeline.
All right, no question about that. Looking forward to all that. Let me first of all get to some people who want to say hello. I want to get to my guest yesterday, Mr. Watch Me Work, who, by the way, is a professional streamed gamer from our friends over at Prozone Gaming Division. Please give them a follow at Prozone GD on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Also, Watch Me Work is on Facebook at Watch Me Work 601 on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. He was also featured in the NBA 2K series. He was featured in their top plays of the week. He's done a couple different interviews, and we had the honor to speak with him. Well, this morning, UK time, overnight, last night, New York time, and we certainly enjoyed our coverage with him. Also, a big wrestling fan, so I want to say hello to him out there. Thomas Cole, woo, Sammy. We love you, Sammy. Certainly want to make sure everybody says hello to Sammy. Anthony Finkel, another buddy of mine, big wrestling fan, says howdy, gents. Nicholas Crenson also says great management finds a perfect balance. And Nicholas is also the brand new champion, the RCW World Underground Champion from our friends over at Wrestling Championship Entertainment. I'll have more coverage with them coming up here Friday night, so stay tuned later on for an announcement with that. Also, he's got to go watch me work, so that's why he's going to watch me work. So obviously, he's got to go to work, so that's kind of a segue that. But also want to say hello to Mr. Phantom Phoenix. And you touched upon Mr. Phantom Phoenix. So if you don't mind, I want to ask you, actually, speaking of Phantom Phoenix, because I had a chance to watch the match, which is over on the Nonstop Action Wrestling YouTube page between Wrestling Appreciation Society and Phantom Phoenix's tag team partner, Owen Carter, against Dan Robertson. Now, Dan Robertson is somebody we've had on here many times on Sportswire, has wrestled a number of different places, seen him in places like GT Ministries, Blackheart Wrestling, CCW, done a lot of work with him lately in what he's done. And actually, Owen Carter got a victory there over Dan Robertson, but it wasn't so much about the victory. It was kind of what happened after the match with this new alliance, I guess, between the Swarm and the Cult of Killjoy himself, Dan Robertson, and wanted to get your impressions on what happened to Owen Carter, because Mr. Carter had to be carried out of the building there over in Swinton at Asylum, and Phantom certainly was a part of that. And what was your feelings on that?
So my opinions are multifaceted. First, NSAW did some matches where I wasn't there to officiate, and look what happened. I just want it on record that happened not under my watch. WIS has been, let's just say, complicated since Deadline. The effects that Donnie and Chris have had with their actions have been long-lasting. These people have left lasting effects on all of our interpersonal relationships, and I've not really had a chance to talk to Owen Carter since, and well, he was trying to warn us in his own quite confrontational way, so we didn't listen. But he was trying to warn us that Donny was maybe not to be taken at face value. Like he saw beneath the mask. He saw what we all couldn't see. So I've got to give it up to Carter that I need to talk to him personally and say, kind of personally, I'm sorry, mate. You were right. But to talk about Dan Robertson, Dan is unpredictable.
Oh, that's the case. I mean, I've had Dan Robertson in countless situations here on Sportswire. I mean, I've seen this guy basically, he's not afraid, or he's not he can do anything at any given time almost. I'm speechless in a way at times about how to figure out Dan Robertson.
Dan has this very clever ability where he's funny. I've seen his online content. He does make me laugh, but it's sort of a nervous laugh because that front of kind of being, I'm going to use the word clown, being a bit of a clown, not taking yourself super seriously. It is for him a front. The man can do some serious harm, and he puts up this wall, this kind of facade of not taking him super seriously, so we can get in it. It's kind of like Orange Cassidy. Like
a little bit. I think there's a little bit more of a diabolical scheme though toward Dan. I mean,
Dan's an evil genius. I'll say it now on record. Dan is an evil genius. He's got himself. He's got this killjoy figure who he's at least associated.
Well, listen, I always go back to the point on Dan real quick is that he got himself a few minutes, even if he got thrown out like garbage with Gareth Angel and Jack Johnson, and then GT Ministries world champion. So, I mean, you have to think about that and what he's been able to do with his career. Just look where he was, this quote-unquote wrestle kid, to where I've seen him face-to-face with some big-time players.
Yeah, the term wrestle kid does get thrown around, I think, rather unfairly to a lot of people that have far more talent than the people calling them that name will ever give them credit for. As we're talking about Dan Roberts, the man isn't, I'm going to go back to that phrase, he's an evil genius. He lures you into a false sense of security, and then he pulls out his most vicious, dastardly stuff when you least expect it. And it's effective. I don't like it. I don't like what he's doing. He scares me, but it is effective.
I tell you what, it certainly works for him. Let me get to some more comments here. Well, I don't think that the ref for that match is to blame. I'm sure they did their best. Okay, well, I mean, that certainly could be a fair point. I want to give a big shout out to Daniel Banner, because Daniel Banner watches us on Facebook, and he says, have you moved to YouTube? You know, I said, yes, I've moved to YouTube, not by choice, because Facebook has put me on a temporary block. I guess I'm on the temporary block list, I guess, for streaming or sharing too quick, whatever it might be. And there's kind of no end in sight with that. So I think I'm kind of permanently sticking with YouTube because I'm not actually able to log into Facebook on my personal computer or laptop. So from now on in the foreseeable future, I'm going to be on YouTube here. So you can catch us always on YouTube at Sportswire Radio. So thank you, Daniel, for tuning in. I've seen you come back to training at GT Ministries. I want to give them a shout out as always. GT Ministries UK. Nicholas Crenson, who, by the way, also make sure everybody follow him out there. He's on Instagram now. He's also on YouTube. He's also on Facebook. And one of our favorites here, our recent guest last week on the show, says, Mr. Robertson sounds like a wrestling version of the Master from Doctor Who. That's a good one here. And also, our Deadline Rumble winner is in the house, Mr. Matt Royale. Hope you're both doing well. I'm well now because I'm here with you and everyone else out there on YouTube and Twitter, and also sportnarium.com/player. But okay, so obviously you weren't the ref there in the asylum. We'll see what happens with Owen Carter. I'm sure Phantom Phoenix is going to have something to say about this very soon. He's definitely upset. A lot of people, I'm sure, in both locker rooms were upset about that. Robertson's an unpredictable character. I got all that. I know Robertson well, and I'm sure Robertson will come back on it because I do owe Robertson an appearance here. But, I mean, when it comes to some other things, let's say, do you expect to see more WAS talent out there in places, like, let's say, like the Asylum? And talk to me about that.
So WAS is a very unique thing. It's a university society, which not many wrestling companies are, which offers us some very unique opportunities. Like for us, we don't care about keeping our guys with us and tying them to contracts. We care about putting on the best shows possible and getting our guys' names out there. And so whatever our guys can do to get their name out there, we have always encouraged them to do. Hence why we've managed to integrate them into places like NSAW. But we are continuing to get out there. There are places like UKW close to us. There's places like GTM, which a few of our guys have started to frequent. Like right now, we exist in the spaces of NSAW and WAS, but we've got connections elsewhere. For example, we're even burgeoning a relationship with Tidal Wrestling, who get big names on their show, like Amir Jordan, Rampage Brown, Simon Miller. I've shared a locker room with some of these people. While not being on the show, I've shared a locker room with some of these people. So, like, WAS is getting its name out there, and we're only small, we're only starting out, but we've quite quickly integrated our guys into the general wrestling scene.
All right, let me ask you about that very quickly, because Friday last week on the show, I had on a guy you might have heard of, Paul Malin, the Warrior Paul Malin, part of NBPW. He's wrestled. Listen, the names, I could go down the list. Doug Williams, he's been in the ring with Tatanka. I mean, it can go down, right? You can go down that road. Check the interview out if you haven't. And he's kind of that type of guy you mentioned in the lines of the names of Simon Miller, Rampage Brown. So you were and got a chance to talk with these people, Sammy. And what did you take away from that? In A, for WAS the future, B, your career as a head official at NSAW, but also C, just for your overall wrestling knowledge to absorb that. I mean, talk about maybe some of those things that you acquired for all of those subgroups I mentioned.
So it's been documented on this show. I'm a more recent wrestling fan. I've only been around the wrestling industry a few years. These people have probably been in the industry 10 times the length I have. So even as a ref, I will always take any advice these guys have, because to just put it straight up, they know more about the industry than I do. And yeah, I maybe shouldn't be saying that as a ref, because I'm meant to know the insides and outs completely. But these are guys that have been around the block, have been in 10 times more matches than I've even seen, and they're competing in them. These have seen things that you will never notice as an audience member. There are little nuances to a match that you only pick up by being in that ring, and these are the guys that are going to know those nuances like the back of their hand. So getting that experience firsthand off them and letting them relay it to me, arguably, I'm going to give this piece of advice to any ref out there: ask wrestlers for advice as well as other refs.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, and I think being a referee is really one of the harder jobs around, because I can tell you this firsthand, because I've actually interviewed a lot of different athletes, and especially people in basketball. And I had actually interviewed a basketball player turned coach in college. He's now coaching at the high school level, you might want to say, here in New York. And he actually said, Tom, I went and tried to do and like go to a referee class and actually try that. It's actually a tougher job, just like in wrestling. To be a referee, you have to be at different places at different times. And, so I could certainly see, how you learn different things from that. I do have some comments. Let me get to people here. Training in the gym every week to prepare. Nicholas Crenton is definitely a fantastic place. You can follow him at WrestleSociety.HUD on Instagram, Wrestling Appreciation Society on Facebook. Check them out also on YouTube. I believe it's University of Huddersfield, or you can check them out. Just do a Google search on YouTube, or YouTube search for Wrestling Appreciation Society. So you were going to say something, Sammy? Was that what you wanted to say, something about the YouTube link here for Wrestling Appreciation Society? If you want to send me a link, I'll read that out also for a handle. That's fine as well. Also here, do you think WAS to be in the GTM Rumbles event next month? Well, I mean, don't tell us anything here. If that's going to take place, which I believe is July the 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, don't tell us anything. If we're going to see Wrestling Appreciation Society in the 30-person Rumble coming up at numbers. So I guess plead the fifth on that one. So that was a good answer, though. But by the way, big shout out to GTM, because speaking of NSAW, Jenny Hayes was actually on the call for the first ever 2 out of 3 falls match for the GTM Women's Championship, which was won by Leonie Rose. And congratulations to Leonie. Also, our good friend Shelby Sinar was on the call also with Jenny. And Shelby's been here with us. Jenny's always been with us here on Sportswire, and Jenny's always doing great things out there. The rock idol of the UK, maybe still out there back in the ring one day. And also,
will you allow me to talk a minute about Jenny and the society, Tom? Sorry,
absolutely. And then I'm going to give you the plug for the YouTube page. So go ahead, talk to me.
Yeah, at the last Enshaw show I was at, before that I put a message out publicly to the society calling for a truce. We're going to have to work together. I gave these guys the opportunity to just leave things alone, and then look what happened at the last NSAW show. Two men, Remus Kane and Callum Majakester, interrupted the first and currently only NSAW singles match. And yeah, as a ref, I tried to cause a DQ and an ODQ match, and I'll hold my hands up and say, well, I couldn't do that. I was breaking my own rules. I forgot what was going on, but two men coming in and interrupting the first ever women's match in a promotion, I think is absolutely disgraceful. And as I said on the mic then, I'm taking that as a sign for the future. Aubrey Edwards has a Jericho. Quite clearly, I have the society.
Okay, all right. Well, you know what? I will certainly come back to them undoubtedly, but I do want to give a big link here. YouTube.com at UOH Wrestle Society HUD. So I want to make sure if you're out there, I'm going to read it off. YouTube.com / UOH Wrestle Society HUD. So that's where you can actually watch the Deadline show. You can also catch some videos, some other types of content, catch up on all things related to Wrestling Appreciation Society. Also, please follow Sammy Rice out there. He is on Instagram. If you want to check him out and all the things that he is up to, you can follow him. That is at Instagram. That is that Ref Sammy Rice. So make sure you follow him on Instagram. It's that Ref Sammy Rice on Instagram. He is also the head official, once again, of our friends over at Nonstop Action Wrestling. And also want to make a double clarification, that Ref _ Sammy Rice on Instagram. So make sure you check him out here for all the great things he's doing. I want to say hello to more people because I'm behind here. Good evening, Tom, and good evening, Sammy. Andrew Hanley. Andrew is always one of our favorites here on Sportswire. Nicholas Crenton, by the way, 19-year veteran, by the way. The guy won his first championship in 17 plus years 2 weeks ago, and he certainly remembers Simon Miller getting his start in WCPW and also Defiant. Very good point here. Nicholas Crenton is like an encyclopedia when it comes to wrestling knowledge. He is one of those guys that if you have a chance to share a locker room with, definitely he's on the bucket list. If GTM are looking for new talent, the WAS roster is a perfect place to look for. Well, you know I'm going to talk a lot about GTM here shortly, because actually, speaking of Matt Royale, if you don't mind, Sammy, I'd like to bring him up, because we are aware of the fact that Mr. Matt Royale had won that Rumble in the main event of Deadline. And we know that we have a current champion in Nonstop Action Wrestling who was the former champion in GT Ministries. And that individual is named Disciple. And of course, the Wrecking Crew that Disciple has been on here has been quite a run here the past several months. He has remained firm in that position as the world-class champion in Nonstop Action Wrestling. And I wanted to ask you, obviously, Sammy, in your title and your capacity as president, what is your thoughts on this eventual match we're going to see here very soon in the near and distant future between Matt Royale and the former GTM champion and current Nonstop Action Wrestling world-class champion, the one and only Disciple?
So again, as is always with the loudest ref in wrestling, I have many an opinion on this. In terms of Disciple, again, another man that scares me. I've been in the ring with the man.
I saw what he did to Gareth Angel. I have seen what he's done to Bentley. I have seen what he's done to Pride. Even Dave Douglas. I can go up and down the list, my friend. Tommy Dillon, Connor Cage.
As someone who's taken a strike from Disciple firsthand, I know the damage he can do to people.
Best time buster in the business. Yep.
Yep. I am slightly scared for Matt in that sense that Disciple is probably the toughest competition Matt Royale will have ever faced up to this point. That Disciple has managed to, by whatever means necessary, keep a hold of that world-class title for quite a while. However, Matt Royale has a spark in him. Matt Royale has something about him that makes him a special competitor. It's a certain je ne sais quoi. It's not something you can put into words. Matt Royale just has it. He has the X factor. Matt Royale is a different breed. And I really think Disciple is in for far bigger of a challenge than he has any idea about. My only other thoughts on this are kind of the backstage things and about the booking of it. And well, all I'm going to say is, Josh Snow, I know your game. That's all I'll say for now. I'm not going to lose my job over that.
All right, so don't lose your job over it, but let me ask you a follow-up. Now, I like Matt Royale. Matt has been with us here several times on Sportswire, and I partially agree with you that Matt is a different beast than the rest of the roster in WAS. He's obviously experienced. He's been in the ring a long time. He kind of knows what he's doing. He's kind of, in a way, the locker room leader for WAS. I got that. But Disciple is a different animal. You've said it yourself. You've seen it firsthand. I mean, it's one thing to go out even and wrestle a Tommy Dillon, and no disrespect to Tommy Dillon. Tommy Dillon obviously has been the trainer in Ensaw in the past, and he held that title, but he was kind of paled in comparison to what Disciple has done. I mean, it's got to be, though, a tall task to stand toe-to-toe with Disciple himself. I mean, Disciple has been, I would say, the run that he's been on in this past year, I'd say 13, 14, 15 months, it's probably been the best run in his career. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Again, my thoughts on this run twofold. Disciple, and I'll admit for my ignorance, the first that I heard of Disciple, the first I've seen of him, is this NSAW title run.
Okay.
And I can't say I've not been impressed. The man knows what he's doing. He can handle any opponent who's thrown his way. He's not lost that title yet. The man has held hostage over that world-class title since he got it and done whatever he needed to do to keep a hold of it. However, I think something that people forget is that Matt Royale has been in this industry for near enough a decade. Matt Royale may not seem it, but he has a lot more experience than people will give him credit for. And I think that underestimating Matt Royale is his biggest strength, because people go in not expecting him to hang and then are completely surprised in those first 5 minutes when he can actually show that he knows what he's doing.
No, I think he can hang. I think he can put up some offense. I think he'll give Disciple a run. I don't think he's in the same breath as even some of the names that I mentioned. I mean, so I agree with you that Matt Royale will have some juice to him. He'll have some motivation. But again, Disciple, what he's done, I think speaks for itself. We'll have to find out. Certainly when that bridge is crossed, when the match is actually announced, I have no doubt I'll get both individuals on here on Sportswire to discuss it, because I feel like it's been a while since I've had Disciple on the show. And Matt is always somebody that's welcome to come on to Sportswire. Our friend Michael Knowles, who I know is no fan of Disciple over these past 8 or 9 months. He's been the NSAW champ, I believe, now going on 7 months. I'm pretty sure. Someone better to dethrone Disciple. All I have to say, he should be ashamed to have the title. Can't really win fair. Never has, never will. No, that's in GTM. See, in GTM, you could make that case. But I think in NSAW, he's pretty firmly held that position, and I don't think he's going to let go at the moment. So, okay, are you going to say something? Or do you want to jump in?
Do we need to forget his last match against Conor Cage?
Yes, I saw it. I watched it.
I can't say for certain who had a hand in getting to Conor Cage, whether Gung Ho acted of his own accord, whether Disciple maybe put a word in, but Disciple didn't really need to do much in his last match in order to keep that belt. His match before, as far as I'm aware, was a no DQ match with Tommy Dillon, where he was throwing him around the audience and throwing him into the lights and doing whatever he could.
Yes, he was beat up, but I said, yes, the fans in Swinton there certainly gave him a piece of their mind, but I don't think Gung Ho is aligned with Disciple. Now, Gung Ho, he has a lot of history in NSAW, in the early days of NSAW. That's something that maybe Gung Ho can speak for one day on Sportswire. I'm going to leave Gung Ho and Conor Cage for that, maybe a different time, a different place, because we are here speaking all things related to Wrestling Appreciation Society with Sammy Rice. And Sammy is doing a great job out there. Sammy, again, is the head official over at Nonstop Action Wrestling, but is now the president here of our friends at Wrestling Appreciation Society. And I cannot stress enough the fact that you want to subscribe to the Wrestling Appreciation Society YouTube page at UO Wrestle Society HUD. That is at UO Wrestle Society HUD. Also, WrestleSociety.HUD. Please follow them on Instagram. Wrestling Appreciation Society is also on Facebook. And there's a lot of great things that the company is doing. And we're very, very excited about that future. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am the man behind Sportswire Radio. And if you are on Sportswire Radio, please give us a follow on YouTube. Also at Sportswire Radio. Also, we're on Instagram at the Sports Report 2020. 2021. Also Facebook. Even though I'm temporarily banned, I can still post from my phone. I'm at Sportswire Radio. My personal page is at Tom Bryce. I have almost 2,000 followers on my personal page, over 600 on my Sportswire page. So thank you, everybody, for continuing to support. And if you always want to listen to these shows and you don't want to see the long hair, the mutton chops, the mugshot, you can always go to sportnarium.com/player, and we'll have more coverage. If I can make an announcement, because I know you're going to have one here in about 5 or 10 minutes, I have an announcement for Wrestling Appreciation Society, because Friday night in your chair, I'm going to have on Zachary Zest. And Zachary Zest is going to have a lot to say. I'm going to get your reactions on that here shortly. And Zachary is going to talk a lot about the future of Wrestling Appreciation Society. Of course, his Peel Back the Truth show, which has kind of been, I guess in some ways, kind of been maligned by some in the locker room. Maybe some have certainly had more of a different opinion with it now, but I'm very excited to have on Zachary Zest. And Zachary's going to have, I think, a lot of things in the pike that he's working on. So let's make sure we support Zachary Zest and all the things that he is doing. Certainly, Zachary Zest is a guy that I think has been that's wanted to come on Sportswire for a while, but now we get a chance here to speak with him for the first time. You can follow him on Instagram at Zachary_Zest. That is Zachary_Zest. Also, Zachary is continuing his journey of being a pro wrestler. And I think, speaking of the society, they did a number on him at the last WAS show, but he might have got a little bit of a revenge on one Jenny Hayes. I'll ask certainly Zachary about all of that here. So looking forward to that. Figure a little about after 8 p.m. British Standard Time Friday night, because tomorrow I'm actually out of pocket, but we'll be back here Friday with a doubleheader UK time. And then I'm back here New York time, evening time, with Craven Rage, the Wrestling Championship Entertainment All-Out Champion. So a lot to get into here. But first things first here, Zachary Zest. I mean, what do you think he's going to have to say? I mean, Zachary Zest, Peel Back the Truth, and he's had kind of his own dealings with the society. And what am I in for here with this Zachary Zest?
So Zachary Zest, a bit like we talked about with Dan Robertson, is an unpredictable beast. I have to say, he's one I severely underrated. When I just saw his talk show, when he tried to bribe me off on his talk show, I didn't really think the world of him. But then he managed to get an elimination in our Rumble, which not everyone did. And I've seen the work he's put in. And behind the scenes, Zachary Zest has put in a lot more work than anyone will give him credit for. That man is committed to this sport. And you, the other side of this screen, might not see that. But Zachary Zest is a committed fellow, and don't misjudge him. He has a funny way about him. He doesn't always take things super seriously.
You know, it's funny you said that, though, because if you would have asked me 5 months ago, let's say even 5 months ago, right? Even before the Tommy Dillon charity show, which a lot of WAS members were involved in, if you would have asked me about Zachary Zest, I would have laughed. I would have thought this guy's got a weird show. He doesn't look like a wrestler. He looks like a joke, a punchline, right? But now I see him out there, and I see that the guy is making an effort. And sometimes you kind of, when you see that, you got to respect somebody like this. And the fact that he's making an effort, and Zachary is making himself known that he wants to compete. He's not just this talk show host that's got this weird, funny-looking music to start. He's got the dancing. No, he's more about somebody that's actually looking to put an effort in there. And I think that he's going to be somebody to keep us. You're going to say something. Jump in.
Piper's Pit, Miz TV, The KO Show. A talk segment is not a reason to dismiss a wrestler's talent.
But I would say one thing, though, Piper's Pit, Roddy Piper, though, I will say was, you can put Jericho in there. You always got The Miz. I would never put Roddy Piper, though, was always tough. He was old school about. Now, if you want to compare him to The Miz, I think that's Miz TV, a far better comparison, because that's where I could see the similarity between a Zachary Zest and The Miz. That I'll give you. On Piper's Pit, Piper was tough in Rumble. I mean, he was one of those guys that could really, his show was different. But I agree with you on The Miz. He very much reminded me of that.
But how long did it take Piper to brew that tough guy persona to get to the?
I think Piper had it, though, from the very beginning. All right, I listen.
I can't speak. I wasn't watching wrestling at the time. Piper is someone who I've not gone back and watched enough of, so I'll hold my hands up and say this might be to do with slightly my own ignorance. But I think people don't give Zachary Zest enough credit. I think the man has a lot of potential, and I don't think we should.
That I agree with you on, and that's why we're bringing him on Friday night, because I actually agree with you that he's won my respect the last couple of months. He has won my respect that, listen, he knew what he was in for when it came to confronting the society at Deadline. He still did it. He went in there and competed at that Rumble. We see that he's training. So he has definitely won me over the last couple months. Like I said, 5 months ago, 6 months ago, I would have said, who? I would have said in my New York, Brooklyn East, who? I would have just laughed. I knew who he was, obviously, but now he's won my respect, and I want to talk with him. And I think a lot of people want to hear what Zachary has to say. Zachary_Zest on Instagram. Check him out. I do have some more comments here about that. Sammy, will you come ref for GTM someday? Well, that's up to you, Sammy. I think that's obviously up to the powers that be. Do you want to say something there? Because you kind of put up, Sammy, you could just keep the mic on. You don't have to turn the mic off every time.
I just remember last time it caused some issues with feedback. It's the only reason
okay.
On it. I will say, if anyone wants me to ref for them, you can watch what I've done in SAW to see if you think I'm good enough. If you want to get in touch with me, I have an Instagram. In the bio of that Instagram is an email. I'm yet to have any other companies who have contacted me about reffing for them. But if you'd like to contact me, please do. I'll put it out there now. If specifically anyone from TNT would like to contact me, I'm from Liverpool, so that would be kind of a big sort of achievement for me personally to ref there.
Yeah, but TNT is a big one. That's a big. I mean, I know TNT very well.
I'm not going to say I'm there just yet because they get some incredible talent. So that's one to work to. But companies around here like UKW, GTM, CCW, just message me. I'm only a message away. I'm always up for getting more experience, please. If you
let me ask you a question real quick. I have more comments, and I want to get to an announcement that you have shortly because I actually have something special. I want to get to that here right after this. But a number of referees I think of here in our UKC, I think of Ref Laura. Ref Laura Kate obviously does a lot of work with the LWF. She does work at some other companies similar to that. Bolton Town is an example. Then I think of Simon Williams, kind of the senior head there in GTM. I've seen him in similar companies that you talked about here, like Enso, I'm pretty sure. And I mean, do you maybe ask other referees? And Scott Bell's another one. Scott Bell I've interviewed a couple different times. Scott Bell is kind of like, to me, almost the gold standard of referees. He's been in Odyssey. He's been in Rev Pro. I mean, he's been in countless companies. I interviewed him, I think, 3 different times. The first time going back to during the COVID years, the early beginnings of COVID. So that's how long I know Scott Bell. And do you find yourself maybe trying to look for advice from maybe veteran referees in the game?
I'd love to receive it, but all of the shows I've worked on, other than the first ever NSAW show I worked on, and I picked up advice from the guy who was there then, I've been the only ref. From the second NSAW show I worked on, I Iron Man ref the whole show. In Deadline, I Iron Man ref the whole show. I've never actually received formal ref training. I've had to learn on the job and do the best job that I possibly can. So I would love to get advice from these people, but this is the difference between us refs and wrestlers, and this is a skill that I've maybe not learnt yet, that wrestlers, they like to talk behind the scenes and they like to give each other shtick.
Oh, listen, absolutely. Listen, there's a lot of backstage, a lot of, politicking, and I can tell you that firsthand because I've actually worked in the real world of politics, and I can tell you that the wrestling business and the political world are almost exactly the same thing when it comes to that. So a lot of nitpicking, sure.
Yeah, but there's not like us refs kind of, we get on with our job and then we move along because part of our job is keeping our own personal thoughts outside. And again,
right.
I'm a new ref, so I'm learning. You can see me learning these skills. You can see that I'm maybe not quite there with keeping my own personal thoughts outside of the ring sometimes.
I mean, it's interesting because you're not a wrestler, but you're a part of the show. But in a lot of ways, I think you are the most important part because a referee actually has a job that helps in determining or getting to the finish or also certain things in a match. So the referee really does kind of hold an important role here. Let me get to some more comments here before I get to this announcement show. I want to play here for us here as now we're in toward the second half of the show. Some would say Zachary Zest is the workhorse of WS. Well, I'm going to find find out Friday night. I mean, I'm giving Zachary Zest this opportunity, so I'm very excited to have Zachary on here. Zachary's made a lot of efforts to improve, and I think that he should get that opportunity to speak here on Sportswire. He's earned it, and I'm giving him that floor, and I think he's earned a lot of people's respect, and I'm going to find out why. Don't get me wrong, I never liked Zachary at first. He just reminded me of an old school gimmick that said, I do see how hard he is. Well, I think that's kind of how I feel, Michael. You would, like I said, if you would have asked me 5 months ago on Zachary's Est, I would have scoffed, right, at him coming on the Sports Wire. But now he's making an effort. I think in some ways, maybe it is similar to The Miz. I think that's really where he's similar, because when The Miz first started out, they threw him out of the locker room on SmackDown. You know, Miz was this real world character, and he had no wrestling experience, and he couldn't even shower with everybody in the locker room. He had to, over a year it took him to be able to go out and finally integrate himself. Zachary says, well, not to that level. But the point is that he's now, I think, showcasing himself that he's a contender. He's a somebody that we're going to see in the wrestling ring. And
I'm going to make a prediction now, Tom. Just
okay,
quickly.
absolutely.
Me, but I genuinely believe this is the year of Zachary Zest.
Wow.
I think this is his breakout year. And you can look back at this footage in 12 months. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat my words. But I genuinely believe in the next year, this is his year.
Is that a Sammy Rice peel back the truth moment? Your own peel back the truth moment there? That you're actually saying that in a year from now, we're going to look back and say, wow, Zachary Zest, that's the guy I should have been paying attention to for all this time?
I've said it the whole show. At first, even I underrated him. You can look at the last interview we did. I wasn't taking him seriously. But since then, I've actually taken a step back and looked behind the silly facade and looked at the work he's doing behind the scenes that most people don't see. This is his year.
You know what? I mean, look, if you would have asked me when The Miz was champion for as long as he was in the early 2010s and retained his title at WrestleMania, I would have laughed at you when I first watched him in the WWE. If you would have asked me that a Dolph Ziggler, when he started out with the Spirit Squad, would have been a multiple-time world champion, I would have laughed at you. If you would have asked me that, listen, the 1-2-3 Kid, a.k.a. 6-Pac and X-Pac, would be a 2-time Hall of Famer, I would have laughed at you. I mean, you can go up and down the list in wrestling history of people that if you would have asked me when I first started watching them wrestle, if I would have thought they would have went on to do the things they would have did. If you would have asked me that Drew McIntyre, when he was playing in a band, with Heath Slater and Jinder Mahal, would have went on and have beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, no way. So, there's a point to be made that I'm going to give you that, Sammy. I like you, Sammy. I like WAS. So I'm going to say fair play to you. We'll find out Friday night. Before I get to your announcement, I do want to get a couple more comments in. I've met Zachary, and he seems like a charming chap. Well, he's got charisma. I'll give you that much. He's got charisma. I'm going to find out here. Phantom would like to say, it's like Owen Carter said about Zest last time we spoke. Carter, myself, Zest, and KP, the 4 pillars of WAS. We fought for the opportunities. We were granted on deadline. All right, let me ask you one follow-up because I want to get to this announcement here while we have time on Sportswire. I mean, you do hear about this in wrestling companies. We had on Wrestling Championship Entertainment's Nicholas Cranston. We'd asked him about the 4 pillars or the 4 cornerstones of their company. And we had spoke about this prior on Sportswire about the 4 pillars of WAS and kind of that moment that you guys had when the show ended at deadline. I mean, do you feel that there are 4 pillars of the Wrestling Appreciation Society and how important they are and were, especially in that moment that had taken place at deadline?
No, it depends which way you cut it. Because in terms of in-ring, I think arguably, yeah, KP, Zachary Zest, and the 2 guys in Phantom of the Outlaw are our in-ring pillars of WAS. The position that KP eventually ended up with in that fatal 4-way was contested for months ahead. And those 4 people put in the work. And so in terms of the things that the audience see, yeah, they are the 4 pillars. I also think behind the scenes, you cannot forget that first committee. Me, Matt, Trav, Kiki. Without us, WAS would not exist. It is our baby. We took it from a thought and a dream to happening. We were the ones that answered the awkward questions. So I think it depends which way you slice it, and I don't want to sound like I'm taking complete credit. I don't want to dismiss these guys' work. I think the point I'm kind of eventually getting to is these guys can be argued as the 4 pillars of WAS if you're going in the kind of modern mold of the AEW pillars.
I think
everybody in that first WAS year helped get it to where it was by deadline.
I agree with you that KP, to me, might be pound for pound the best overall technical wrestler on the roster. I agree with you. What Phoenix and Carter have done has certainly put a spotlight on WAS. The match they had with Callum and Remus, which you can watch over again on the YouTube page of the Wrestling Appreciation Society, UOH Wrestle Society, UOH Wrestle Society HUD. Please, that's the YouTube link itself. You can find out. So there's no question. I agree with you on that, but maybe you're winning me over about Zest, so I will give you that much here on that. But, you have an announcement that I want to play for those that are listening and watching. We have a little bit of time here, and I want to actually figure out how to replay this again. So I want to make sure we kind of were doing the old university try here. By the way, I want to say the university because in America it's college, but in the UK it's university. I want to get the UK linguistics right. I'm always trying to, evolve with the times. And for the university try here to kind of get this right, because you have an announcement that I think fans of WAS will want to know about. So I think I'm going to try to pull this up here. So let's see if I can get this right. Let's see. Nope. Do I have it here? Let's see. Let's see. Whoop. Let's take this off because I think I did it wrong. So let's see. Oh, there we go. Now.
Hello, I'm Sammy Rice, the Once Equalities Officer and now President of the WAS.
I'm Connor Long. I'm the Vice President for the WAS.
Hello, I'm Leah, the Production Manager of WAS.
Hello, my name is Chris and I am the Equalities Officer.
The first year of WAS has been a larger success than anyone could have ever imagined.
Over £1,000 raised for cancer research.
Around 100 tickets sold to an electric audience that ate everything up.
Integrating our roster into NSAW, bringing people from only stepping into the ring to championship contention in just a handful of months.
The passion internally and the response externally have gone beyond our wildest dreams. So from the bottom of our hearts, we just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Now, what comes next?
The only way is up. WAS is going to continue to grow bigger and better.
You've seen what we've done with one show. Now how about 2?
On the 26th of November of this year, just a few short months away,
WAS will present its first of 2 shows coming in the following academic year.
At the parish in Huddersfield.
And in association with Tidal Wrestling.
WAS will come together again in conjunction with some of your favourite NSAW talent to bring you another unforgettable evening of wrestling.
This show is its own show. However, we'll be working in partnership with Tidal Wrestling, a fantastic company who've brought us in and taken us under their wing over the last few months. So thank you to them. But we're going to be working with them and we're going to be running a show in the same venue on the same day, but at a later time we're going on after Tidal.
2 separate shows in one location on the same day.
That's a lot of wrestling talent under one roof.
Tickets will be sold separately, however there will be a charity raffle running across both events and we will announce the winner on social media at a later date.
So join us, November 26th at the parish in Huddersfield, 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. as WAS presents.
WAS presents.
WAS presents.
Extension.
All right, here. Let's pull that up. Oh, let's move that. Let's move you back to the main screen here. I guess we can remove. Well, we'll leave it. We don't see it no more. But there we have it here. I mean, wow. I mean, that is something. And I gotta say, for those that are listening and watching here, Sammy, I actually didn't watch the video before we went on the air. You gave me this video, which for whatever reason, backstory here, You sent it to me yesterday morning, my time, and I didn't really realize I got it until it was in my spam folder about 5 minutes before we went on the air. And I was like, oh, okay, now I got it. And so I didn't get a chance to actually watch this video before we went on the air. I actually planned to, but I had no idea that this was going to happen here. So, I mean, I'm watching this here for the first time like everybody else. And I mean, this is a big deal here. I mean, Sammy, wow. I mean, we're back at extension now coming up here November the 26th, which is actually now a hot skip and a jump away. We're talking just about 5 months, first day of summer. Now we're going to transition here right to almost Christmas season. I mean, wow, Sammy, let's talk about this for those that are listening and watching.
So there's a few factors with this. Firstly, as you mentioned earlier, now that I can talk more freely, you asked how we're going to make WAS better. We're directly doubling what we did last year. You had one show last year, we're giving you two this year. Not of both the same scale, because we want that deadline slot to be kept for a big show. We want to make the end of the year feel big. We want to build to something. But this show, it's not going to be one to be slept on. It's going to be in a new location for us, and it's going to be in association, as I mentioned, with Tidal Wrestling. They're a company who we've had a very good communication with over the last few months and are going to help us promote this show. And we're going to be working with them across the whole year. We've managed to get some experience from that company that has been invaluable. Taj Shock, who runs that company.
Oh, I know Tidal very well. I have covered them in the past on Sportswire.
They're
I'm very aware of
fantastic
Tidal.
company. I can't talk enough good things about. They have done wonders for us and really did get in, kind of hit the ground running, and saw that we were a new fledgling society and straight away picked us up as someone to work with. So that's a fantastic thing. And the other thing I want to say about this, to kind of, Pete, he won't like me saying this, but if we're going to go shooty, rooty, tooty, shooty.
Uh-oh.
Chris Walker, right, RGM, will probably in the following days, because I'll tell you now, this is a preview of an announcement. The full announcement will be going out tomorrow for logistical reasons. But Chris Walker, I will predict now, is going to take credit for this. However, that is complete and utter things I can't say on the radio. Chris Walker has done nothing for this show except for signing on the dotted line. I, as the president and as someone who's wanted to continue the legacy of WAS and leave my legacy, leave something that this company, this product can, something that has my name and my stamp on it. I'm the one who sorted out this relationship. I'm the one who had booked this show, but yet will I get the credit for it? Because I'm not GM. All he's done, as far as this show is concerned, is sign on the dotted line. So his name's all over it, but who's done the actual work? Me.
Well, I mean, look, I'm going to segue into that, into kind of our final thoughts here shortly. But this is still a big deal. Let's focus on the positives here. Tidal Wrestling is a company I know very well because many people I've had on Sportswire throughout my career have been a part or are currently in Tidal Wrestling. I think about Reese and Rogan. I had Reese and Rogan on multiple different times here on Sportswire Radio. I think about the likes of Big T. I mean, Big T is a name. I know Big T very well. Big T, Synergy. I've had Synergy on multiple times here on Sportswire. Synergy almost like the gold standard. The Los Lankadors. I know the Los Lankadors very, very well. I've had them on here several times here on Sportswire. I think about a guy like Sam Gradwell. I mean, that's royalty right there. You think about wrestling. I mean, I think about Rarebit, the current GTM world champion, the former Bolton Town champion. I mean, you can go up and down the roster of stars that are in Tidal, that are people we know or either we spoke about here on Sportswire Radio. Mickey Barnes. I mean, the Badland, Mickey Barnes. I mean, Mickey Barnes has had some wars with RPD, by the way, a multiple world champion. I mean, Billy O'Keefe. Billy O'Keefe's a name I know very well. I mean, I can go up and down. Listen, I could talk all day about Tidal Wrestling, and there's reasons why you want to follow them on Instagram at Tidal Wrestling, but especially the big news here. One more time, I'm going to play it on the screen, not the full video, but I'm going to show you again the background here because we are going to see it here on Sportswire Radio, and the fact that, again, Wrestling Appreciation Society returns. November the 26th at Parish Huddersfield from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. British Standard Time. More details to follow on the Wrestling Appreciation Society social media pages. That's WrestleSociety.hud on Instagram. YouTube, maybe you find out more information there as well. Facebook, Wrestling Appreciation Society, You Wrestle Society. So go out there, UOH Wrestle Society. That is on Facebook, YouTube, again, Instagram. You'll find out all the links are in their bios. They'll have an announcement. Surely by Friday's show with Zachary Zest, I have a feeling that we're going to be speaking much more about this. And congratulations to everybody, regardless of this announcement, because the fact that we're going to have a show so soon, and we're going to have 2 for 1, 2 for the price of 1. I mean, what better deal is that? You're going to get a title show, and you're going to get a WAS show all in the same day. I mean, that's really, again, you cannot ask for anything better here. Also, more comments. The 4 of you made the show who built the groundwork for the 4 of us to soar. Amen to that. And there's an old adage, a rising tide lifts all boats. I am sure this will be fun. It's time for WAS to prove the doubters wrong once again. Sweet dreams, wrestling world. Extension will be another show to remember. All I ask, Sammy, is that you book the match that needs to happen. Me and Donnie 1-on-1, which segues me. I can't say it's the best for last tonight, especially from your vantage point, but I'm going to certainly save maybe, how can I put this?
It's the thing people want to hear me talk about most. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, I was going to say the most for last. Okay, you did certainly kind of get a sense of how this works. So, Donnie Franchise, then. Donnie Franchise, in a way, almost wanted to kill what he created. Donnie Franchise, you thought you knew him, right? Matt Royale basically treated him like a brother. I mean, up and down this roster, we heard from people like Phantom of the Outlaw, and I'm sure Zachary will have something to say about this on Friday's show. But I mean, Donnie Franchise did kind of the unthinkable. And I mean, he was almost like, I guess, the third man in the NWO way back in Bash at the Beach, 1996, or kind of the trivia question to who ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, we can go up and down the list here of kind of traitors that Donnie Franchise very well could be in the same category with. And I'm going to now give you the opportunity, Sammy, because people now are certainly that tuned in. They want to hear it. We've saved the most for last for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio. Sammy Rice, your reactions to what Donnie Franchise had to say here, and most notably, his actions to what he's done, especially to this locker room in the Wrestling Appreciation Society.
So, if you looked at the last show Donnie was on, I had a big long comment because I couldn't help myself. Again, I tried to, but as the self-proclaimed loudest mouth in wrestling, I do struggle with keeping my feelings to myself. I hate Donnie Franchise, but I do not blame Donnie Franchise for what he did. You have to give me a minute, Tom, because I have spent every night since it happened thinking over this and thinking about how exactly where I lie, because at first I wanted just to forgive him, just to find the easiest way for me to move on with my friendship with that man, but I couldn't. He completely ruined any relationship that me and him had. And I do want it known that in a professional sense, yet he had the closest relationship with Matt Royale, but behind the scenes for the last year, me and Donnie have been like that. That man has been there every step of the way for me for the past year. And the fact that he did what he did right in front of me, and while his so-called new best friend, Chris Walker, who I will get to in a minute because I have many an opinion on that man, while they both sat there and made me count the pin for another one of my best friends, Matt Royale, made me do that to someone I love and care for deeply, I found disgusting. Donnie, I can't blame him for wanting to get as far as he could in this industry. He's new blood. He wants to get his name out there. I just hate how he did it. Donnie wanting to get into the best possible positions. Like, he did it. His first match, he was nearly a first champion. His second match, he was nearly a first champion again due to unforeseen circumstances. His 2 matches in front of people have been for championship belts. That man is getting somewhere. And he
didn't win them, though.
He didn't win them, but he's got himself in those positions in his first ever matches, and it's getting people talking. And that's what he wants. I don't think right now I'm sure he wants to win, but I think right now, as long as his name is in the conversation, that's what he cares about most.
Yeah, but he set up the attack that Kyle Kennedy famously put on you, where we were basically saying prayers for Sammy and comparing you to a guy, DeMar Hamlin, who in the NFL nearly died and basically was in a coma. I mean, how do you come across something like this to say?
He might have put his name all over it, but I do not think that was his doing. I blame Chris Walker. I hold Chris Walker responsible.
Why do you say that? Why?
The Donny that I knew was the Donny that started WAS. And when he realised the pressure was getting a bit too much of being both a top star and a president, he hired on Chris Walker. And since Chris Walker has been around Donny franchise, he's been in his ear.
Are you saying, basically, are you comparing Chris Walker to the equivalent of Yoko Ono to John Lennon and basically breaking up the Beatles? Is that what you're basically saying?
That's what they tried to do. Chris Walker came in with his own agenda. He tried to steer Donny franchise in the ways that he wanted Donny's life to go. Chris Walker knows that that man cannot hang in the ring. He's trying to vicariously live a wrestling life through Donny franchise by convincing him to do these terrible, terrible acts.
But you don't think, though, that Donny franchise could... Now, again, I'm not trying to take a side. I heard what Donny had to say a few weeks back on Sportswire, but you don't think that Donny could have accomplished these things if he didn't go through the lengths that he did, basically the attack on you, what he did to Matt Royale, what he's done to a number of other people in the locker room? I mean, what do you say to that?
It's part of what kills me most about all this, because I absolutely agree with you, Tom. Donny could have done it, but it would have been hard work. Chris Walker showed him the easy road. Chris Walker showed him how to quote a very famous wrestling person, lie, cheat, and steal. He showed him the society. There was already this connection between Kyle and Donny. They are best friends. That is, well, already.
Listen, I mean, right, and that's a well-documented kind of relationship there. It's certainly weird. I don't know if I'll say it's ugly head here multiple times on Sportswire, but it's certainly
ugly
weird.
The ugly side of that relationship and the ways to exploit it, they worked out how to best exploit that to ruin everything that was around. But I believe at the center of that, none of this would have happened unless Chris Walker started influencing Donny franchises, being his right-hand man, being the devil on his shoulder, telling him the ways that he thinks he should run things.
But I would say, though, but see, this is where I'm confused with you, Sammy, in the fact that we've had on even some of the society since then. We had Jenny on, we had Remus on, and we've had these different people, and we asked them their thoughts on this whole Donny franchise situation. He's essentially persona non grata, not only in the WAS locker room, but even in the NSO locker room. I mean, to go through these lengths, and nobody really seems to trust him or want to be aligned with him, but as you say, this Chris Walker guy. So I almost say, was it really worth it from your vantage point?
From my vantage point, none of this is worth it. But I'm not the Donny who tried to tear apart WAS. I'd like it to be on the record that it was unsuccessful since deadline.
Well, obviously, we have the news once again. You guys are back November 26th. So certainly Donny, I mean, he tried, but you guys are actually more stronger than you've ever been, it seems.
And I'm prepared for him to try again. I've heard rumblings in the back that these guys don't think I've got a big enough set of kahunas to book Matt Royale versus Donny franchise. If I could book it right now, I would. But due to the screwy stuff that Donny and Chris Walker have got in place, I cannot book that match. Chris Walker needs to sign up on the dotted line. And right now, I think he is scared of Donny being made an example in front of the WAS.
But okay, maybe not, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. Donny got himself into 2 championship matches in 2 of his early matches in his career so far. How many people can say that? Is maybe Chris doing this because he doesn't want Matt Royale to be made an example? Or, I mean, is there a fair play to say, well, maybe it's Chris Walker who's doing it for different reasons? I mean, what do you say to that?
That would imply that Chris Walker has a shred of morality in him, which is completely and utterly false. Chris Walker is a terrible, terrible human being. He wants to do what is best for him. And the most advantageous thing for him is keeping Donny looking as strong as possible.
All right, but I mean, I still think if I'm Donnie Franchise, I pretty much can't set foot in any locker room right now because
He's a coward. Because he doesn't want to face the repercussions
right,
of his
it
own
almost
actions.
and not to compare it, but it's almost like when you go to jail and it's in a sense where you commit a certain crime and people look at you and say, well, I don't want to go integrate myself with that person. Only Donnie, what he did, stabbing the back into so many people in the WAS locker room, I almost view it the same way. And Matt Royale, I think, makes a fair point here. The only person to blame is Donnie. He's a grown man. He made his choice, and now he has to deal with the consequences. And, I mean, how much can Chris Walker save him then, you think?
Chris Walker, as of right now, can save Donny in every way he wants, in a WAS sense. Chris Walker, and as much as if I had the power, I'd remove him, but Donny got him in an ironclad contract, Chris Walker, unless he chooses to step down voluntarily, is our GM.
So there's nothing from a legal ramification you can do? Have you guys looked into that from a legal perspective?
No. Donny was very... And whether this was in the plan all along, whether this was just an unforeseen oversight, Donny got an ironclad contract in to protect Chris Walker.
Is this something that you think?
Be suspicious, Tom.
Well, is this something you think that is going to dog you guys here the next 5 months? Because you have to obviously put on a show. You have to sell tickets. You have to be able to get people to wrestle here. Obviously, it's a big deal to be with title, and you guys can't fall flat on your face. So, are you saying here that Donnie is going to dog you guys, and you guys are going to have to deal with this almost like, how can I put it, black cloud surrounding you guys here with this whole situation? Whereas you say Chris Walker had nothing to do with this event, and per se, from behind the scenes, Donnie Franchise isn't going to want this event to succeed for whatever reason. Is that what you're implying?
At the end of the day, in terms of a business perspective, Donnie has nothing to do with WAS anymore.
Right, but Chris does, though. But Chris does.
Chris does, in terms of he signs off on the dotted line.
But Donnie's going to want you guys to fail.
He may, but this is where we now need to be careful. Because at the end of the day, yes, he wants us to fail. He also wants Donnie to look good. So if we can find a way to play off both sides, and I'm going to admit this publicly, I will tell them all my plan because I'm not some man who works machinations behind the scenes. I'm not even a man, for God's sake. But just...
All right. I mean, okay. I mean, I agree that you maybe are being out-politicked in a sense for different reasons.
Sorry, Tom, if I don't have all the answers, but when I got into WAS, we did it as a brotherhood. We did it to put on the best wrestling possible, and that is still my mindset.
Well, one person didn't want to be family with you guys, and that was Donnie Franchise. Donnie Franchise all along, maybe at some point there was a change, but he had this scheme to kill what he created, kill what he started almost. And it seems to me that there's going to be some conflictions here. I don't think we're going to get those answers Friday with Zachary Zest. I don't know if we're ever going to get those answers until, I guess, this plays out the closer that we get to November the 26th. But there's going to be a lot of pressure here on you guys because, Deadline had an event that drew a lot of people. You guys did really, really well, right? You had all this attention. You had all these people come out, non-wrestling fans. You fill in the blanks, right? You were in this big venue, and you guys hit it out of the park, right? You scored a goal, unlike Harry Kane in the World Cup late last year, right? So the fact of the matter is that there's going to be a lot of pressure on you guys because there's an old adage, a sophomore slump or a sophomore jinx. You guys have to avoid this here. And there's a lot of pressure now because you're with the company in Title Wrestling, which I know Title Wrestling. I know the type of talent that they have on here. I've interviewed them. I know what they're about. So you're going to have a lot of pressure here. Now you've got this surrounding you guys?
There is pressure, but Donnie and Chris are two people. A solid 80% of the WAS locker room agrees with me and Matt, who I'd like to know, me and Matt have been like that since Deadline. We talked it out straight away because we wanted to cut out any, and excuse my French, Tom, we wanted to cut out any bullshit. Me and Matt were just like, right, this has happened. Here is how we're going to continue. And since then, me and Matt have worked on our relationship and continue to show to each other that we are loyal and we have the same vision for WAS, which has spread into the locker room because Matt Royale is our locker room leader. He has gone around and we have an internal list of who is on our side and who's not. And I'll tell you now, as of right now, the people who aren't on our side are severely outnumbered. So we have a lot of people who want WAS to succeed and are going to make sure that the things that I want in place, and I don't say this as a power-hungry maniac, I say this as someone who is trying to give people in this company opportunities. If Donnie and Chris want to stop me from booking opportunities for them, they are shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, they very well might be. I mean, we'll have to find out. Certainly, these are going to be answers that we're not going to get quite for a while here on Sportswire Radio, and we'll certainly have to see what happens with it. I have no doubt that maybe one day Mr. Walker, maybe he'll want to say something. I know Zachary will have the floor here Friday night, and I guess we'll have to certainly at least give him an opinion or two on. I'm sure Matt, because Matt and Disciple is going to happen, I would imagine, later this summer here on Sportswire, is certainly going to have a thought or two on that as well. And I also want to say hello here to the now former IMF champion of the world. One of our favorites here is always the House of Wolves, Mr. Omen Black. And Mr. Black, I have a feeling, might be here with us Friday night New York time because one of his favorites in the world of wrestling, Craven Rage, the Backyard Nightmare, is going to be here. That'll be 10 p.m. Eastern time. And I have a feeling Mr. Black and Mr. Rage will be meeting once again face-to-face. But we'll have to see her. So I guess then before I get to closing thoughts, this is to be continued here, more or less, between where we go with extension and then this whole, I guess, I hate to say it now, black cloud surrounding Chris Walker, the rest of management, and even lurking in the shadows, Donnie franchise.
If it was up to me, if I could use my presidential power to do so, I would have gotten rid of Chris Walker immediately. I don't like what he's doing. I don't like, as you say, the black cloud it's leaving over WAS. I want WAS to be a home that can foster the next great wrestling talent. I want people to come into WAS and leave WAS a different and better wrestler and person than they were when they stepped
And
forward.
I think you guys have done a lot. And I want to, before I get to closing thoughts here, in the 9 or 10 months it's been since I've been talking about you guys, and I do think you guys have accomplished a lot. And let's stay on the positives. Let's end on the positives here, that you had this deadline event, which took forever to promote, forever to talk about, right? Drew as many people as it did. It's on YouTube now at the Wrestling Appreciation Society channel.
Please watch.
I watched it. Listen, I try to watch everything. Listen, at this point, I mean, all I watch, I'll make you chuckle. All I watch at this point is wrestling. People ask me and they say, well, what are you watching these days? And I say, well, I'm usually watching somebody's wrestling match or a show because we have so many companies that we speak with. IMF is one of them. Obviously, our friends over at IMF Wrestling 666 on YouTube, over 1,000 subscribers. You guys, Ensaw, our friends at WCE, DKW. I can go on all day about wrestling companies, right? So all I do is watch wrestling on my Xbox on YouTube. So that's one thing, right? But the positives are, you had all these people show up. You raised over 1,000 pounds, which I was a part of in supporting and contributing to, for cancer that has affected so many people around the world. Not just if you're an American, you're a Brit, but a Canadian, if you're a Mongolian, if you're whoever you might be, right? You've all been impacted by this horrific thing that has taken away the lives of so many people. So we did that, right? We're doing another charity here coming up on November the 26th. So we've done so many things here that we all can be proud of. And I have no doubt that this event is going to be successful. And this is a big deal to the fact that here tonight on Sportswire Radio, yours truly, the man behind Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce, got this opportunity to announce the fact that November the 26th, we are going to have Wrestling Appreciation Society return to the Parish Huddersfield from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. British Standard Time for extension. And we'll have more details, I'm sure, tomorrow. And I'm sure with Zachary, I'll speak with some of that Friday night in your chair. And I'll see what Zachary has to say on this about much, much more. Skulls, I want to say hello to my friend Skulls before I get to your closing thoughts. He says here that, he says here, there we go. Sammy Rice might become a Vince McMahon when it comes to management. Well, I think that was Donnie franchise. Go ahead, say something before I get to closing thoughts.
To compare me to Vince McMahon is completely and utterly a misunderstanding of what happened. Vince McMahon is the evil T-Rex, and you know he's a T-Rex. He's got a bloody thing of one behind him when in his office. He is the evil T-Rex, the evil dinosaur right at the top. If anything, I know when Carter's not going to like this comparison because I know he wants to be it. I'm the Stone Cold. I'm the person calling out management for what they are. I'm the person trying to further the industry whilst the people at the top are putting us down and placing glass ceilings over us that I just want to smash. Vince McMahon is Chris Walker and Donny Franchise. They're the authority that you want to try and overthrow. Don't pin me with those two.
Okay, I mean, I agree with you on that. And I would also add to the fact that I wouldn't want to be compared to Vince McMahon, especially with that really, really awful dyed mustache and that really he almost reminds me of what was the newspaper character in the first Spider-Man movie with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, where that newspaper guy that Peter Parker works for, he almost looks exactly like that. So I have to say, I would not want to be compared anyway to the look of Vince McMahon. And this is a guy like me who's talking, right? Who hasn't shaved this in like 5 years, but Skull says you're more like Daniel Bryan. And all right, well, I mean, maybe. I mean, that's a better comparison. The Vince McMahon one, I just think is totally. I think it is. I don't think it's the right comp. I don't know if Stone Cold is the right one, but I guess we'll figure that out. We have a lot of questions still to be asked, and I think we'll certainly try to figure that all out here coming up very, very soon. I can't wait for everybody to find out more details on the announcement, regardless of the fact that the Wrestling Appreciation Society returns November the 26th. For extension, Parish Huddersfield, WrestleSociety.com on Instagram, also Facebook, YouTube for more information. Let's end on a positive note. I'm giving you the floor. Anything you want to say to anybody that's made this happen? We're going to have another show here later this year. You being the president, whatever else is on your mind, I'm going to give you the opportunity. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And the floor is yours because you know the drill by now.
So I didn't want to get like this in this interview, and I want to apologize for everyone who's had to say
No,
this.
listen, you shouldn't apologize. It's you're here. Listen, we have countless.
I expected to get passionate about Donny. I didn't expect it to overtake me this much, but it's the first time I've had to talk about all this, and I've had a lot.
It's been almost 2 months. It's been building. It's the show was almost 2 months ago now, so I understand. There's a lot of tensions here.
But we're going to put all of that to one side for now, because while you're giving me this opportunity for closing thoughts, I just want to say this. I am making a promise to every one of our fans that Sammy Rice, while they are president, is going to do everything in their power to make changes around here. Change is happening in WAS, and I hate that this has to be our second year, and already I've got to deal with corporate screwy rubbish. This is not what I wanted WAS to be. When I signed on as one of the first 4 committee members, I wanted to foster a home to bring up the new and best British wrestling talent. That is a tongue twister. Try saying it 5 times fast. But
trust me, I'm not one to speak on pronunciations and all types of stuff, so it's okay.
Yeah,
I'm
so
from New York.
I want us to be a home to foster people like KP, Prisoner Psycho, Leviathan Stark, who didn't get a chance to step in the ring come deadline for circumstances, but we are raising talent that people didn't even get to see. We have done more than people realise, and that is my vision for WAS. We are a dojo, we're a training home, we are a place to get you opportunities and get you connections and get you from one place to another. We are not a place for corporate screwiness. We are not a place for evil, vindictive people at the top. And whatever I can do to change that, I will. Donny Franchise had his vision for WAS, and it was the vision that benefited him most. My vision for WAS is the vision that benefits everyone most.
And that vision leads us to extension, November the 26th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Parish Huddersfield. Certainly more information to come, and I have no doubt that we'll talk about it here. And I also want everybody to follow Sammy Rice on Instagram at @ref_Sammy Rice. Please give Sammy a follow on Instagram. Also check him out on YouTube as well. Also Wrestling Appreciation Society. And Skull says from our friends in California, the West Coast Wrestling Company hasn't found a new venue due to the wheelhouse unprofessional behavior at the last show. Yeah, I think I did hear about that. And certainly we never condone any unprofessional behavior on Sportswire. So we hope that things get sorted out and our friends over there have a great show eventually when that happens. And obviously, Skulls will be a part of the July 8th show coming up at Wrestling Championship Entertainment, which I'll be talking about Friday night, New York time, Saturday morning, overnight UK time. So great stuff there ahead. But to listen, a rising tide always lifts all boats. And the fact that November the 26th is going to be that rising tide that we're all excited about, especially with Title Wrestling, that speaks for itself. Great job. Congratulations still. I'm looking forward to the future of WAS. I have no doubt a lot more coverage is ahead. I'm looking forward to having Zachary on here and hearing his, I guess, side of things. And maybe we'll peel back the truth a little bit when it comes to Zachary's S. But Sammy, thank you as always, my friend. Keep up the good work. I have no doubt we'll hear from you soon. And looking forward to more on this announcement here tomorrow and beyond. And I have no doubt we'll talk about it Friday and the weeks and months ahead on Sportswire Radio.
Yes, thank you again for having me, Tom. I'm sure I'll be on with another big announcement at some point before the end of the year. Fingers crossed. But yeah, thank you again for having me. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to talk and get my feelings out. But I don't imagine this will be the last time that people hear from me this year. I cannot stand for some of the stuff that's happened, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make changes for the positive.
Well, listen, they definitely don't call you the loudest referee in wrestling for nothing. And the old Kiss song famously says, as Paul Stanley famously sang in those lyrics, all hell's breaking loose. And I have no doubt that all hell's going to be breaking loose between some in WAS and especially management and lurking in the shadows, Donnie Franchise. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Sammy Rice, our head official from Nonstop Action Wrestling, also the president of the Wrestling Appreciation Society. If you're on sportnarium.com/player, you'll go back to your regularly scheduled programming in about 15 minutes. We have a Pinstripe Chronicles Marathon. I'll be back also here Friday night, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. British Standard Time with Zachary Zest, also for more Wrestling Appreciation Society coverage. And I'll be back around 10 p.m. Eastern Time with the WC All-Out Champion of the World, Craven Rage, the Backyard Nightmare, the ruler of the yard. So we'll see what Mr. Rage has to say. Also, several guests ahead. And also, again, here the announcement, November 26th extension, the next WAS show. Also, thank you to our friends over at Title Wrestling. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am the man behind Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire Radio. Thank you, everyone.